Going on, Jerome's. So, mercifully on this beautiful Monday, trying to take my mind off of what's going on with the greasy grime of Green Bay Packers and the low energy Detroit Lions. So, look at who's been hired and fired. So, NFL currently has 7 head coaching openings: the Raiders, Panthers, Chargers, Falcons, the Commies, the Tennessee Titans, as well as the Seattle Sea Chickens. And I mean, there's always a couple surprises. I firmly believe that Mike McCarthy is going to get fired. I mean, he could be fired as of right meow. Plus, I think if and when Sirianni and the Eagles crap the bed in Tampa Bay, I think that he could be out of a job as well, which is crazy since they were in the Super Bowl last year. But a lot like what happened with Doug Peterson. I think it is a conflict of personalities in Philly, so who knows. But one opening has been filled. The Patriots, who parted ways with Belichick, have brought in Gerard Mayo. Succession plan there, so he rises up from linebackers coach to head coach. And I do think that Gerard Mayo is a solid leader of men. He's got the respect of everyone in that building. And I think that if they hit on quarterback at the top of the draft, I think that they could be set for a long time. Plus that defense. Defense is already pretty damn good, but I think Mayo's going to turn things around there. For the Raiders, so reports are it looks like Antonio Pierce is going to be the odds-on favorite, which AP got this team playing some great ball. Max Crosby said that he would request a trade if Pierce wasn't named the head coach. And the whole thing about it, too, is Pierce, obviously, a high football IQ player, was great with the Giants back in the day. And even though he didn't necessarily come from a coordinator background, I feel like that's not the only qualifier for being a head coach. Is like, hey, this guy's really good at coordinating one side of the ball. No, are you a manager of personalities? Are you a leader of men? Can you be the CEO of the football team? Can you manage a game? And Pierce has done exceedingly well in that regard. And I think that you may see more coaching hires like this, where Mayo. There is no de facto defensive coordinator for the Patriots, but he was heavily involved in that side. But overall, Mayo was a guy who didn't have coordinator experience. Dan Campbell wasn't a full-time play caller before he got the Lions job, and this could be a spot. Pierce, I think that if he nails the coordinator hires and the Raiders are able to bring in a competent quarterback, I think that the Raiders could be a little bit something. I like Antonio Pierce a lot. For the Panthers, now this one's tough, right? So the Panthers, they had the worst record in the league. They don't have their first-round pick, which ended up being number 1 overall. They got Bryce Young, where there's a ton of question marks. Like, does he have the size and durability to thrive in this league? Their top players are free agents. They don't have a lot of offensive firepower. Their offensive line is garbage. But other than that, and by the way, you have probably the worst owner in the NFL and the worst owner in all of team sports. But other than that, you're really, really good. I think that this is a tailor-made job for a guy who likes to roll the dice and a guy who's just a little bit off, Todd Monken. All right, so Monken, he head coach at Southern Miss from back in the day, and he's bounced around. He's coached at LSU. He's coached at Georgia when they went on their national title runs. And Monken has done a great job with the Ravens offense this year. I think that he's just crazy enough to do it. Where he's like, he looks at Bryce Young, he looks at a blank canvas, he looks at, hey, we're going to be bad for a little bit, but Monken, coached in the South for many years. I think that would be appealing for him heading to Carolina, and I actually do think that he could open up this offense. Like, he could make chicken salad out of chicken bleep, and hell, maybe Adam Thielen has another 1,000-yard season in him, but I think Monken is just. He's just off just enough, and I don't mean that in a bad way at all. Like, he's the good kind of crazy, and I think that that could certainly sync up in Carolina. And Monken knows, look at Matt Rule, look at Frank Reich. Like, hey, he's gonna get paid either way from David Tepper. Money is not an issue. The Chargers, I think this one's pretty straightforward. I think that, a big reason why I think Antonio Pierce is going to get the Raiders job, one, because he earned it. Number two, because I think Harbaugh has his eyes set on the Chargers, where that does make sense. And the Chargers, you have some weapons. Defensively, you have some pieces. And most importantly, you have Justin Herbert, which I do think that Justin Herbert is still very good on the borderline elite in terms of the quarterback position. Plus, Rashawn Slater is a stud. Let's be honest here. So Harbaugh, you knew that if and when he got back into the league, he was going to have his choice of jobs. And I think him returning to Southern California, he's had a lot of success in Cali, got San Diego Toreros. up and running, and then obviously with Stanford as well as with the Niners. So Harbaugh in this spot, I think it's a good match. Next up, Falcons. So Atlanta, if they get the quarterback spot right, I know the draft number 9 overall, they could bring in a veteran like Kirk Cousins, maybe, but I mean, the Falcons' job is a lot of fun. You got Bijan Robinson, you got Kyle Pitts, you have Drake London. I mean, you got weapons all over the place, and defensively, you got some nice pieces as well. So I think this is a tailor-made spot for Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson's been the cat's ass for the last couple of years, and all the reports like, oh, he wants $15 million per year. I think Arthur Blank is sort of fed up. I think Arthur Blank is going to pay it because they brought Arthur Smith because he was supposed to be this offensive guru, except the total was less than the sum of its parts. It was ridiculous the way that he operated with Bijan as well as with Kyle Pitts this year. So, Ben Johnson coming in, you look how innovative the Lions offense has been in spots where if he gets the quarterback spot right, I mean, the Falcons automatically become very, very interesting. So I think that's a good matchup there. Next up, Washington. So you knew that Magic Johnson and company, they want to take some big swings. And Belichick, there was talks about him. Ben Johnson talks about him. Harbaugh talks about him. But I think at the end of the day, Washington, I mean, they do have some nice pieces with Scary Terry. They do have a high draft pick as well. And defensively, I mean, they did just let Sweat and Chase Young go for whatever. But I think this is a spot where they bring back Raheem Morris. Now, Morris coached in Washington for a couple of years on the defensive side of the ball. And Raheem, even though the Rams defense sort of lost a chess match against the Lions last night, I do think that Raheem Morris, who is respected in this league, I think he's a good defensive mind. I think he relates well with the young players. He was in the mix for the Vikings head coaching gig a couple of years ago before they hired Kevin O'Connell. And Morris, I mean, Raheem Morris went 10-6 with the Buccaneers with Josh Freeman. I feel like that should get him some credit, man. So Raheem Morris gets back in the game with the Commies. Tennessee Titans, this is just a bad spot. All right, so you're getting a new stadium, but you have some questions about ownership commitment. You have questions about the GM. You have questions about the quarterback, and it's a mess all over the place. Like there's literally just a lack of roster talent in this spot, but I don't know. Like I think that they're going to try and shore up the defense, and grabbing Aaron Glenn, even though the Lions defense was sort of a work in progress this year. Aaron Glenn is highly respected. Working his way up the coaching ranks. Was with the Saints with Dan Campbell previously. He was a great cornerback back in the day with the Jets and whatnot. So I think Aaron Glenn has got a mess to take over in this spot, but also, I mean, premium head coaching jobs, they're very rare. I think Glenn is a solid leader to oversee the rebuilding of things in Tennessee. Next up, Seattle. So, I mean, this one's grooved, right? Like, so ownership potentially wanted to keep things in the family, especially if Pete Carroll does stay on as an advisor, which I doubt. I mean, hell. Pete Carroll's going to get back in the game at some point, man. I think that he could potentially be a college coach next year. But DQ was the coordinator, Legion of Boom years, knows Pete Carroll, knows ownership, knows the area. And Dan Quinn has been a hot head coaching choice for a number of years. Now, that Dallas defense did not look good yesterday, but that's one game. It's sort of besides the point. I think that Dan Quinn, who with the Falcons when he was head coach, like he did have a good winning percentage. He did win 80% of a Super Bowl. Him returning to the Emerald City makes sense. So lastly, these jobs aren't technically open as of yet. Well, actually, who knows? Mike McCarthy might be fired by the time you watch this. But I think Jerry Jones, he wants to take a big swing at this thing. Like he doesn't want to have a rebooting project. He wants to win now, and Belichick is the guy. I mean, Belichick is obviously a guy where Jerry Jones has ceded power before to Bill Parcells, where he brought him in to be the coach and buy the groceries, and he had Big Bill. Why not go get Little Bill? So Belichick, I think, is going to take over in Dallas. Got great pieces on that defense. If he can just get Dak's head out of his ass, sure. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got some pieces of a good offensive line. So I think Belichick could find some success early in Dallas, early enough. That's what Belichick wants to, because he's 72, ain't getting any younger, and go from there. Bring in Saban as defensive coordinator. Why the hell? Actually, Oh, could you imagine if Saban took an NFL job again? Would be crazy. And the Eagles. So I think there's going to be a conflict of personalities with the Eagles. I think Sirianni, if and when they do bow out right here, especially after a 10-1 start, I think that he could be gone. And there was a big issue with them losing Steichen as well as Gannon, the two coordinators from last year. And the defense was bad. Jalen Hurts, I think, clearly regressed, and like someone's going to have to pay. So enter Mike Kafka, right? So Kafka actually got his start in Philly, Parkland, backing up Donovan McNabb coming out of Northwestern. And so the Eagles, I feel like the Eagles have been searching for like that tie again to Andy Reid. That's why Doug Peterson was so appealing. And I think they go back to the well. And Kafka has risen up through the Kansas City organization. Then he went with Dayball. So I also think that stealing someone from the Giants is going to be kind of fun too. And yeah, the offense was a mess this year. But does Kafka bring? Actually, I don't think he can do that. No. Nah, I don't think that's going to work. But Kafka and power in Philly, circle is complete. So that's it. That's our NFL coaching vacancy predictions. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. You know what to do. Skol, production value.